Without a win in this year's league, the pressure was certainly mounting on Clare as they faced visitors Dublin yesterday. The home side, however, got off to the perfect start with Conor McGrath pointing inside the opening minute. Two David O'Callaghan points followed by this goal from Keane Boland saw Ger Cunningham's side lead by 3 after the opening 5 minutes. John Conlon, who impressed throughout the day, was in fine scoring form too, with little between the sides in the early stages. However, points like this from Dublin wing-back Chris Crummy opened up a 5-point lead for the visitors. Clare badly needed a goal and they got it on 33 minutes. John Conlon's effort flying past Alan Nolan, reducing the gap to 3. However, just on the stroke of half-time, Brendan Bugler was shown a straight red card for an off-the-ball incident. Clare down to 14. 2 points up at the break, Dublin started brightly with Mark Schute's second, extending their advantage. In front of a small crowd in Ennis, inspirational joint captain Patrick Donnellan pointed to leave just 2 between them. Before the home side were rocked again with Dublin's second goal of the day, David O'Callaghan blasting his shot past Donald Toohey. However, Clare's powerful last 20 minutes would soon change proceedings. Conor McGrath again showing superb skill to narrow the margin. Before Tony Kelly, brilliant all afternoon, pounds to score Clare's second goal of the day on 66 minutes to put Davy Fitzgerald's side 4 points clear. An outstanding score from wing-back David McInerney in the closing minutes secured a badly needed win for the Banner. That on a final scoreline of Clare 222, Dublin 220. But can they now back it up against the reigning All-Ireland champions Kilkenny when they face off next Sunday?
What pleased me most about the win was the character. We went down to 14 bodies. We went down 6 and 7 points a few times in the second half, and by God, did they show courage, so they did, you know. And that's what I expect. Like, we could easily be sitting with 4 or 6 points. We're sitting with 2. We're probably going to be in a relegation playoff, and whatever happened, that'll happen. I don't really mind. Obviously, you don't want to go down, but at the same time, we have character. We showed it today, so we do. And stuff really starts from me onwards. That's when it starts.
David Fitzgerald also gave his reaction to an article yesterday morning in the newspapers in which ex-Clare hurler Davy O'Halloran accused the manager of humiliating him.
No reaction. In Clare, we do things properly. There's a code of discipline, that's it. And we just drive on, so we are. And the lads have been great, absolutely fantastic.
More about that in a moment. Well, as Damien said, a badly needed win for the Banner. That's their first big match victory, by the way, in almost a year. I suppose the longer the things were going on, they were getting beaten and so forth, Brendan, you know, the more questions were being asked about where Clare are at this week. But of course, it's still the league, it's still early days, and we'll see what happens from now on.
Yeah, that was all right until everything, the storm cloud had gathered around Cusack Park prior to throw-in. Dave will be really, really happy. They were 6 points down at 2 stages in the game. His main men, Tony Kelly, carried on the Fitzgibbon Cup performance. John Conlon, McInerney, all these guys were really to the fore when Clare really needed them. And down to 14 men as well, mind, against a Dublin team who were, you know, they were going okay and thought that they could have gotten the win. Clare finished the game really, really strong. You can hear it. There was only 2,500 people at the game, but you can hear the roar coming from the Clare supporters. And after Tony Kelly scored the goal, it said enough, you know, the passion in his face. That wasn't just a league game for Tony Kelly, you know, that was a statement.
Well, I suppose Clare were up, I think, a point up at that stage. Tony Kelly's goal gave them the gap that sort of brought them the victory.
It did, and Tony Kelly's goal really encapsulated everything that was wrong with Dublin on the day as well. The use of possession, ball across the field, you know, and Dublin haven't conceded so much against Cork. You'd expect them to follow the runner. Now, we've highlighted Tony Kelly here, and inside him there's 4 Dublin defenders between him and the goal. As the play develops along, you would expect at this stage a defender to look around and see what space is across the front of the goal. But once the Clare man runs onto the ball, plays it in, who pops up? Tony Kelly, and not a Dublin defender in sight. Now that's something that'll really, really annoy Ger Cunningham when he looks at the video of this. You're looking for your players to just mark up the man, Cork the last night ran rings around Dublin in Croke Park. It looks like communication piece as much as anything else in the Dublin defence. So they are really going to have to work on that if they're going to get to the top table.
OK, let's just talk briefly about these issues off the pitch that have cropped up in Clare in the last couple of days. And for those who are not entirely familiar with the situation, 2 players dropped off the panel for disciplinary reasons. One of them made comments saying that he had been humiliated by Davy Fitzdavies. I heard they responded to that. We don't know exactly what happened within the Clare panel.
Were they dropped or did they walk? Or I believe they
were disciplined and then they walked. I think
they were disciplined and they walked themselves.
Yeah.
We're in a different era, Michael. I mean, they're grown adults, you know, and sometimes you got to treat players as grown adults as well. But there's the other side of it as well. If there is a team discipline ethos within the group and they set their standards at the start of the year, anybody breaches, you might get one opportunity and you go. And if there's a second breach, you're gone then at that stage. What bothers me about this is if the article with Davy O'Halloran is to be correct about maybe the humiliation of the training regime and that he has to train on his own. He's not allowed to wear the Clare training gear. He's no longer part of the setup. I think you're better off just getting rid of him. If he has breached, just get rid of him. Don't be bringing him back on the basis and try and do that to a player, you know. And there are standards there, right? To me, there's been no reaction from any of the group of players that are there, right?
Sure,
so,
yes,
you know, so if there's people that want to back up those 2 players, I'm sure you'll hear something shortly. But if they're out of order, you're not going to hear anything. That'll be the end of it. The players want to get on. And it's not about one individual. It's about the team. And if the team feel this is the correct decision, you've got to drive on.
Of course, just one thing about it is things like if you're being disciplined or reprimanded, not being allowed to wear the team gear or be at the train or talk to the other players and train, blah, 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 and all this kind of stuff, which sounds harsh. Brendan, when you were playing, was there anything like that in Tipperary? How did you deal with things like that?
Yeah, panels sit down at the start of the year and they always want to have their team for the year, and the first one was always going to be discipline. So it's driven by the players. So sometimes there's different shapes it can take. One is that players would sign this code of conduct, knowing that once that's signed, then that's given the manager the authority. We're all a community here. We're all a family is the word we always try to use, right?
And once you've code of conduct back in our day, we wouldn't make the first match.
This is modern hurling.
That's a long time ago.
All right, okay, I give up.
But then once that's breached, Davy now is in a situation where he's the gatekeeper. Now, I would turn it the other way. I'd say if a player takes his punishment on the chin, he goes outside, he wears the string vest or whatever he has to wear while training is going on, he reintegrates into panel 3 weeks later. The effect that player has when he comes back is massive.
Okay.
It bonds the team and sets you up for the championship. Now what's happened is Davy's fielding questions. The player, in case, has to go nearly to media school to find out all the phone calls he's going to be getting about this. But in fairness, on the pitch, Clare produced the goods.
And they did produce the goods. The most important thing was the result, and they got the result yesterday. 14 against 15.
As John Mullane of Waterford put it all those years ago, you do the crime, you do the time. That's it. All right. Let's have a look at the league tables, gentlemen, and how